So I'm Nyree and I'm from my business Genie. So when I first met Colin, he said I had an interesting mind. I will let you decide. I don't know if
True.
I I've got an interesting mind. So I'm not here to talk about tick com box compliance because I can tell when Dave realized it was my turn, he was like, "Oh God, not another compliance one," especially coming from somebody coming from compliance financial services. But what I'm actually here to talk about is why most businesses that might look successful from the outside or look like they're doing the good thing, they actually get stuck because we're living in a world of outdated systems, staff are getting burnt out, founders are becoming bottlenecks, and compliance is becoming either something that it's left for another day, or at worst still, it becomes actually a cage for the business and it stops the business from growing. So we're going to go through rewiring your business from this business from the inside out, why structure alone isn't just enough. So I actually dive into the world of human design. So if you don't know about human design, it's basically how we move energy around our body. And something that I'm supposed to be doing is infusing magic into the mundane. And what more mundane can you get than compliance at the end of the day? So when I originally started out in businesses, I wanted to help businesses protect themselves because I could see so many people setting businesses up online. They were collecting people's information and they didn't have a clue what they were doing with it. There was no privacy policies, all the customer journeys, they were non-compliant. They were putting the clients and their businesses at risk. So I set up the compliance genie. But I struggled with the word compliance. I don't know why. Well, I do now because I actually hate control. I hate control when it doesn't make sense. I hate rules when they don't make sense. So when somebody said to me, well, what does compliance mean to you? To me, it just means doing the right thing. It's being in integrity, doing the right thing, not because everybody else is doing it or someone's checking up on you. It's just doing the right thing because you know that's what you need to do. So, and to me, compliance isn't just like a tick box. It's like I've got a policy, I'm compliant, because to me that feels off too. If you've nicked a policy from somebody else and go, I'm compliant, it doesn't match up. So to me, being compliant is part of running your business with authenticity and integrity and trust. And as I dive deeper into the world of it, I've realized that compliance and governance and risk as a whole, it's the container and the framework to enable your business to expand and grow. Oh, so just a bit about me. So this is a bit of about my background. People do call me the genie, and once you speak to me, you probably know why, because I'm nothing like a typical compliance person. Also, I've been told. So I actually fell into the world of finance through Bradford and Bingley back in the day when the little top hats were around. I worked for the likes of Friends Provident and Ultimate KPMG, where I fell into the world of pensions. So I administered pensions for the likes of Adidas, Warburtons, and Kellogg's, and I became qualified as a pension consultant. But I didn't want to restrict myself to the world of corporate pensions, so I went into financial services and got qualified in the G60. I could do all the individual pensions as well. I was like, if I'm going to do 9 qualifications in one pension, I'm sure I can sit the G60 at the same time. So I actually got all my qualifications in 2 years. They wouldn't actually give me the official title because I didn't have enough experience. Later on, I realized you need both. There's no point having your qualifications if you've got no experience and vice versa. They both work well together. So I fell into the world of power planning back in the day when nobody knew what it was. Somebody said, I don't know what to do with you. You're too qualified. You don't want to be an IFA. How about being a power planner? I was like, well, what's one of them? So I fell into that. And then I fell into compliance. None of us set out to work in compliance. We just sort of fall into it. Nobody says to you at school, going, oh, what do you want to do? I want to be that one person who tells people what they can't do in their business. So what I didn't realize at the time was that I have the ability to fix things if they don't work and I can make them run more smoothly. I always got the most awkward pension scheme, the ones that nobody would touch because they weren't running properly. Or when the regulator came knocking on the door, it's like, can you look at that? Because it needs sorting out. And plus the fact people trusted me to do it. If they asked me to do it, it was done. And a few twists and turns led me to moving away from financial advice into the world of call centres, but still in an FCA regulated environment. And I can tell you now, if you've ever worked in accountants and gone into a call centre, it's a bit of an eye opener, especially in Hull. I live in Beverley, and Beverley and Hull are a world away. So put me in a call centre, I was like, what is going on? It was a bit of a shock. Anyway, but it led me to the world of data because this is when GDPR came in and we had issues in the call centre, but nobody wanted us to look. They were like, don't look there because we knew there was a problem. but nobody else would look at the data, and they were all worried about the fines. So who do we give it to? We give it to compliance. Happy days. And call centers are obviously, data is their lifeblood. Who I worked with, it was like their premise was that data is our lead until someone either dies or says, do not contact me. They used to carry on, keep dialing it because it's the lifeblood of the business. They were also from Australia at the end of the day, so they thought there was a backdoor through the FCA. They did actually ask me that once. I was like, I don't think that applies in the UK. It might in Australia, but not here. So what it did give me was access to every single part of the business, and it highlighted all the risks in it. Because I quickly found out is when I was in meetings and I was like, this is your problem, they didn't trust my intuition or my gut. They were like, well, we need the data to back it up. GDPR gave me that skill because I actually realized that once GDPR it introduced compliance. It's like a web of compliance. I'm compliant. If I'm doing business with you, you need to be compliant, because if I'm sharing data, we both need to be compliant. Otherwise, I'm responsible. So it increased this web of compliance. I've since realized if you follow your data, you'll always find your risk within your business. Am I talking too fast? Am I okay?
You're fine.
So I'm not just here to talk about compliance, as you've probably guessed. I'm here someone who I build businesses from the inside out. I'm currently actually building a business because I'm fed up of fixing everybody else's. So I've literally started building my own business that's going to go through the SCA approval. This isn't this business, it's a separate one. So I cover structure, strategy, and the stuff no one seems to talk about. I don't just interpret the rules or stick a policy in place. I look at I'm going to say energy, and people might think I'm strange, but we use energy in our houses all the time. It's the stuff that we don't see. You know, we use it to fuel the computers. We know when we walk in a room and our back goes up because someone's just had an argument. We know when something's not right. Maybe people call it the sixth sense or the intuition. I'm going to call it energy. So I hope no one's put off by that. Or maybe business intuition is the best thing. So I spot hidden bottlenecks in businesses. You know, like I've got an organizational chart on paper, it looks great, but that doesn't show me where the bottleneck is. But you can sense where it is when you start speaking to people who's doing all the work. I ended up becoming a bottleneck in most people, or the biggest risk in most people's businesses, because they trusted me to do everything. But actually then, if I'm out of that business, it becomes a problem for the business. So that's not going to represent on an organizational chart because, oh, I've got the directors, I've got this and I've got that, but this person's doing all the work. It also highlights when pricing feels off, which I know it's a funny thing to look at from a compliance point of view, but this might be why you're feeling that you're giving too much for your clients and you're not getting enough back. And is where it ties into how we're built as people. So if I'm not working in the way that I should do, I get frustrated. Some people get angry, some people have bitterness. But if you're not doing what you're happy doing, it'll come back and it impacts you as a person. And ultimately that goes back into the business anyway. So I work in the space where structure meets self-awareness, because businesses don't break down from bad strategy. They break down when people running them are misaligned with the structure that they've built. So these are the patterns that I look at. So for the last 25 years, I've seen what hasn't worked, especially in financial advisory firms, call centers and accountants, and financial services. And when I say 25 years, I am that old. I know that I don't look that old because I've got good genes apparently from my mum, but people are quite shocked about how much experience I do actually have. And I forget half of it half the time. Okay, so things might look like they're great on paper, but in reality, it's just chaos. Businesses have got clients, income and teams, but something's still not working in the background. There's too much stress there and there shouldn't be stress. I know we're told to work hard for a living, but I don't believe that we spend so much time in our lives, it should be something that we actually enjoy doing, especially if it's our own business and we've got the ability to change it. It should be in alignment with how we want to work. So being stuck in the operations of the businesses can get stuck in operational aspects of the businesses instead of growing them. It might be because they don't trust other people to do stuff. I know better, or I can do this. But at the end of the day, everyone's got a unique skill set. You need to be where you're giving most value to that business and not trying to control everything. If you've got staff in your business that you don't trust, they're the wrong people for you. Or you need to start training them so you do trust. Or if you become then the bottleneck, and I get stuck in this thing because I used to always get stuck in the operations of the business too. All decisions that are left to them, those people, and they become a bottleneck. And also they might not have clarity around the decisions that they want to make because someone from compliance says you can't do that, as in that's their interpretation of the rules and they've not factored into the business. The way I look at things is what are the rules and how I used to say to people in the call center, what do you want to do? And we'll find a way of how to do it compliantly. Not that you can't do it. So don't come to me and say, can I do this? Because the answer might be no. Ask me how, and then you're going to get a response, a better response. So I always say it's a better question, ask the better questions and you get the better response. I also look at all systems that are being built for businesses that have just been outgrown. So I worked in an accountancy practice that I literally had to go downstairs in the basement at 12 o'clock every Friday to go and get my expenses. And it baffled me. I just couldn't understand. And this was only like 5-6 years ago. I couldn't understand how people still worked like that. I get that people might be coming out of a job, but put them in a different place. This the same accountancy firm wanted everyone to send their timesheet off every Monday, but it had to be in the print setup so they could print it off and put it in a file. And that was someone's job. And I just couldn't fathom how you could run a business like that. But also the structures that might have worked 3 years ago, your business changes. So what might have been relevant for your business when you set up is not applicable in 3 years' time when things have changed. Or worse still, it worked for someone else because you've just nicked that policy from somebody else and you thought it was all right, or that framework, or you've adapted it from where you were before, you've taken it here, and it's just like, oh, that'll do. But I'll also look at the processes, including pricing structures, and even staff might not be in the roles that are appropriate for them. Okay, so I might have had a few one-to-ones with a few people, and depending who I speak to, you might get a different response as to what actually I do in business. So I know a few weeks ago I spoke to Colin and he was surprised that I actually had another business because it's what's relevant to the conversation. So generally when I'm in this forum, I say that I work in governance and risk and I specialise in financial services and data protection. But my work also includes other layers in businesses. So not just the strategy or the structure, but the energy and the way people work. I actually also look at astrology and human design, which is not for everybody. And I get that, but I can't remember was it Warren Buffett or somebody said, the billionaires work with the astrology and the millionaires don't. There's something in the stars that's interesting, but it's not for everybody. I get that. So I don't just work for strategy or structure or the energy. I look at the patterns around the structures and how they are implemented and working within businesses. Let's call it intuition for those who feel better, because I know it can be a bit funny. But let's be honest, and Dave can tell you this, anybody who's worked with compliance people will always smell the rat. They'll always pick the one file that you don't want to be picked because you know there's something wrong with it. They'll just find it. And that's not because the data says it, they're just following they know something that's there. So you can call what you want, but you'll actually know what you're talking about. So to me, it's intuition, and think of it like the governance of your business. And once you build it in, you remove the friction that you didn't know you actually had in your business. So we've got 3 levels. The external legality, which is your FCA, HMRC, GDPR, and Companies House, which so many people miss. So many people miss this on the websites, they miss it on the disclaimers, they miss it on the marketing. It's almost like they don't even realise it's there. We've got the operation integrity, your contracts, your complaints, refunds, accountability, but also your intuition, which is how you're getting your clients and if they are the right clients for you. Also money, which is another thing that I look at, and also authentic marketing. Now think about it this way. I can't remember that I can't say this properly, but it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. Was it Bananarama? You can say you do all the right things, but if your integrity behind it is not right, people will feel that it's off. It's Bananarama, isn't it? I can't say the word. So I look at the architecture of the business. I look at the values of your services. So yeah, I look at the value that you place on your services, not from the FCA point of view initially as to whether it's justifiable, but whether it reflects the value that you are providing to your clients in exchange for your time and your experience. because if it's off, it won't feel right to you. We all undervalue what we know and how we charge for people. And at the end of the day, people will pay what they see a value in. You know, like some people go to Primark and go, oh, yeah, well, I'll buy that because it's cheap. Other people refuse to go to Primark because they'd rather buy a better quality of clothes, because it's all about the value. And what's a value to me is not a value to other people. You know, so it's people can afford what they want to afford generally, because they'll always find a way if it's a valuable to them. So we need to be in alignment with what's valuable to us, and actually we feel that we're charging the right thing as well. Obviously, we need to look from the SCA point of view as well, but even if they're saying undercharge or overcharge, you need to be comfortable with it, because if you're not comfortable with it, it's not going to work. So you have to be in alignment with your charging. I also look at the pressure points in your business, which is generally highlighted through your risks. Are you taking too much time? Are you draining your resources? Are you relying on somebody too much? Because they become your biggest risk. And generally, one-man business owner is obviously the biggest risk. But if you've got a biggest risk in your business through people's the biggest risk that you can ever manage, because people can just decide one day, no matter what you've got in place, they can decide one day just to do what the hell they like. So you just have to make sure you've got the right culture in place for that. Systems and processes that are built for growth. If you're running a business on a spreadsheet, and I've seen a few of them, and we know proper management information, it restricts your growth and you haven't got the information you need to make better decisions. And when I look at businesses and its framework, I don't just look to fix it. So when I'm doing audits, I don't look to see what's wrong. Obviously, I'll see what's wrong and say, this is how you change it. But I'm looking to see where the business is going, because I can see the business should be here and the business wants to go here. What do you need to get there? So it's not the case of, this is what you're doing wrong, I'm going to bash you over the head as like, you're not compliant. That doesn't help anybody, and it makes people feeling like, what have I missed? This is how we fix it, and this is how we get to where you need to be. So, and generally people in the compliance teams know that, but they need an outside person to actually back that up, because it's very strange when you're an internal compliance person, businesses don't trust you as much as when they've paid for outside resource. So if someone's paid 15 grand to tell someone who's internal the same thing, I went through it, I can't believe it. It's like, I actually trained people to do auto enrollment and got people to pass their exams. So they worked for Grant Thornton, and when auto enrollment came in, I actually explained to my boss at the time, saying, we don't need to auto enroll yet, we're not due to be done. Oh, well, Grant Thornton told me that. And I sent all the evidence to them, and he's like, well, I've paid them for it and I trust them. I was like, but I trained them to give you the advice in the first place. But because I was internal, it was almost like, you're not classed as, I don't pay you enough to think for your opinion to matter, if that makes sense, which is very strange. But people always tend to, if they're paid more for it, they trust it for some reason. But it just means people are very strange when it comes to money. Colin's nodding as if to say, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so I look at 3 pillars, which is governance, which is trust by design. I look at your values and your ethical frameworks, and how you behave in business is not just what you promise, it's actually how you act about it. Policies, privacy, data protection, your websites. The amount of non-compliant websites out there is shocking. When I first started out, I was helping online businesses, and really they just don't even think that they need compliance. And I don't even get it, because everyone's using data, so I don't understand how they don't know it. And I know a lot of businesses are being set up, and they might not have come from a corporate background, but a lot of people are, and it's almost like, oh, I can do what I want now, but they don't realise there's nobody else checking what they should be doing, and they're responsible now. The operations, complaints handling, terms of business and contracts, inclusion and transparency, internal systems that build long-term brand and reputation. Governance is about building trust into a business. It's not about copy and pasting a policy, which I found a lot of people just do. Money. I also look at money. So why is it included? Well, apart from the fact that I specialise in financial services, so I needed to understand it at some point. It's also one of the most important things in business, because without money, we don't have no business. And this is where structure meets exchange. So we probably all already know that money isn't the numbers we see in the bank. It is an energetic exchange for the value that we provide. And there's a lot of emotion about money. And this is where some of my other work comes in, and why it generally comes up with the people that I work with, because business owners, they have to deal with money every day, especially people who are setting up their own businesses. They've gone from being an employee to then finding their own money. So they've had to change the mindset of someone pays me money every day. Now they're like, oh, where's the money coming from? So they need to start understanding the money. And this has been my journey, because it's such an important part. It's an important part of life anyway, but when someone's paying you each month, then you know it's coming through a salary, you see it in a different way. So even if we outsource it to accountants, we still need to understand it and how it works within the business. So when I first began working in financial services, I thought compliance and governance was just about the rules and penalties. So if you don't do this, you're going to get penalised. But I've always actually used it to protect people. I was like, what do you need to do? I'm just protecting you. Let me know what you need to do, and we'll make sure it fits for you guys. Because I don't want to be telling people off. You know, we're not kids, not at school. I don't appreciate someone telling me off and going, oh, what are you doing? You've not put an eye there and that stuff. You know, I don't need to be told I'm an adult. So I don't feel that being the police works. But every time I've realised that this structure is what allows money and energy to move. The structure allows the money to move, and it allows it to move freely and safely. So your pricing strategy should be aligned with your value. Shouldn't be undercharging or under earning or overcompensating yourself. It needs to be in alignment. And also the structures need to be, what you're offering needs to be clear, understandable, and not drain the people in the business, and delivering something that doesn't feel good. Because as soon as you're delivering something that feel good, you'll know about it and you'll start getting frustrated or bitter or angry, depending on how you're built. Okay, well, financial services got it right at the end of the day as well, because the financial advisors got one thing right in the business. They're built on trail fees. So they do understand money from some aspects. That I don't think they always understand the emotional aspect of money. But having this recurring income enables you to predict what's due to land in the business, and it enables you the money to flow consistently. So the third pillar is your business intelligence. Am I all right for time?
Yeah, should be coming to the end of it now, Nyree. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm near the end. So business intelligence. So most businesses break not from strategy, but from misalignment strategy. The values in actions. So what you say versus what you actually do, and how it feels to interact with that business. Clarity around the leadership, who holds the decisions and who holds the stress. Energetic bottlenecks of what's being forced and what's being ignored or masked, and marketing and messaging. Is it actually true, or is it actually performative? The amount of marketing that we see was, oh, I'll make you 10 grand in a month. You know, you could never get through that for the FCA. So I'll also say that if you actually do the marketing, always take the FCA leaf out of the book, because they do know what they're doing in some sense. So what I would say, it's important to know what your values are, because the FCA have got this right. Because when you focus on the right culture and values, you effectively become compliant anyway. So before we look at fixing anything or putting a framework in place, it's important to understand about your values, and do your staff know them, and are your actions consistent with your values? So my values are freedom, trust, and integrity. And if I'm not inconsistent with them, it feels off in the business, and I feel off, the business feels off, and nothing feels right. So what happens when things aren't working or in alignment? We have reputational damage, financial impact, regulatory impact, operational issues, refunds on repeat, burnout, high turnover of staff, stagnant income, the pressure to hustle harder, and it generally costs us either time or it costs us money, which we're all trying to save, but it'll end up costing us that in the bigger picture. So it's important to be aware that if a business is scaling too fast too with the wrong systems, bringing in clients that are not fit for the business owners are becoming bottlenecks, or people within the business are becoming bottlenecks. It becomes an issue anyway. So it's always best to look at things before you start scaling, so you can make sure you've got everything in place. Who I work best with? So there's within the transition stage, something that is either ending or revolving. So I do specialise in financial services and data protection, but governance frameworks should be implemented pretty much across all businesses. And let's face it, everybody uses personal information. also work best with those people who don't like to be told what they can't do. Because I don't believe I can't do anything, but I always believe there's a way around things. Obviously, I'm not saying break the law, but like within the remit, there's normally a way around things. And it needs to feel right for you and your business. And it needs to be appropriate for the business, which is why I don't like copy and paste policies. You can't just stick someone else's policy in your business and go, well, I'm compliant. Because if you're not following that, then you're not compliant anyway. And if it's not appropriate for your business, it doesn't feel right. Those who want to build businesses that works for them and their staff. And generally, you've probably already guessed, if you're brave enough to question if there is another way. So, anything else? I've hoped that I've reminded you that everybody is allowed to run your businesses in how it feels good to you. And if you ever need any help, then just let me know. And everything that I've shared with, it sits within 3 frameworks, because to me, everything's a framework. Governance and risk and compliance, money, and DNA. DNA is probably a structure for another day, but I actually did my degree in biology, and DNA was something I specialised in. So some of the things I do is an integrity audit. So I look at the business and see where there's potential problems, see how we can fix them, and see where the business wants to grow. Integrity compass is how to navigate decisions around governance, risk, and compliance with clarity. Not you can't do this, this is how we do it. And for those who like a bit of a mystery, we've got the corridor, and I will let you find that one because you have to go and search for it. Okay, any questions? And I hope I haven't bored you all with my compliance.
I was going to ask Nyree whether you do an audit of a business. You clearly do. But is that something that would be a large scale enterprise, or whether would you sort of do an initial sketch audit, if you like, at a free or cheap cost as an intro? How do you actually get into a client?
It depends. Generally, it's people that have come to me. So like I'll do AML audits and things. So people, or I'll do a protection audit. So it's people like, I'm struggling with this. This is what I need. I'll always have a quick chat, like for 20, 30 minutes chat to actually say, well, what are you struggling with, and do it that way. Because some of the audits I do are quite really in depth, and I don't want to give them away free because nothing's free. But then also I need to give value to certain people as well. So it's the best thing is just to have a conversation, because if it's something I've worked with people before and I'm like, you don't need this, this is what you need. Because even when like I can write policies, I can do this and I can do that, but sometimes people can actually do it themselves unless they physically want me to do it. So it's always best to have the conversation with somebody first to see what they need. Because it could be like, well, actually, you don't need an audit. Because I'm not one for something, and I might be underselling myself short, but I'm not one for selling something for the sake of it. If a business doesn't need it, I won't do it.
Thank you.
Your question. It sounds like a politician answer that.